Rasputin could have really benefited from some starfish and oysters as some jewelry.
Rasputin could have really
hair
benefited
flip
from
thing. Yeah.
a diet rich in omega-3 in fish.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Unbelievable, the podcast where I tell my friend two wild historical stories, one of them true, one of them false.
And I try to figure out which is which.
As you probably already know by now, if you've been listening to the podcast, Luis and I know each other very well, so we have to get pretty tricky to fool one another. However, we are making good competition for each other so far. Before I get into the two stories today, Luis, do you have a little fun fact for me that I can try to discern truth or lies from?
I do have a fun little fast fact, Kurt. I want to quickly ask you, did the Romans, the ancient Romans, wipe their bums with toilet paper?
Oh, so I don't think they had toilet paper, but I also don't think they had a bidet because you would need water pressure, right? So I'm going to guess, I think maybe there's a third option. I'm going to say false. I don't think they use toilet paper.
Well, I'm glad you did say that, Kurt, because that's actually true. Now, here's a couple of theories of exactly what the Romans did to wipe their bums. So, I don't know if you've seen pictures of Roman bathrooms at the time. They were communal. Imagine like those trough urinals you see at stadiums, but instead of a urinal, it's just a hole on a bench.
Oh, very cool. Pooping with the boys.
Now, here are two options. You either didn't wipe, which is always a crazy one. You just stood up and went about your day. Or there's a tale that they would put a sponge on a stick and use this sponge to clean themselves up and just pass it around for whoever needed it.
Oh no.
I know that maybe this is a little gross, and I apologize, but I still have butt on my mind from last episode, Kurt.
Yeah, no, you know what? Actually, everyone who's listening right now, just talk amongst yourselves for a second. Luis and I have to have a private conversation. Hey, Luis, come here. Listen, this is a lot of butt stuff. There's all these butt themes going on recently, you know?
Yeah.
And I worry we're going to become like the butt history podcast. I think that's what you're doing to us, Luis. You're making us the butt podcast.
That's true, Kurt.
What's going on? Is this a cry for help? Is it for attention?
I don't know, Curtis. I've just been really stressed lately. Started a new job, and I don't know. I think now that spring is here, and I'm having to turn the clocks back, and the U.S. has reached daylight savings times, but Mexico hasn't. I don't know. I'm just all over the place.
I get it. You feel the need for a sense of control, and that's why you're doing this. But you need to get it together because you are replaceable. Okay. Everyone, we're back. We're back.
Happy to be here. Unbelievable.
Lots of laughs on this podcast here.
Laughs,
we're having a good time. All right. All right.
This is the podcast where we never talk about butts ever. Woohoo!
That's true. You won't catch us doing it. Without further ado. I had a couple stories I was going to tell you at one point before we got off the rails here.
Well, let's hear them, Kurt.
Let me start with my first story, which takes place in Phoenicia. Luis, what do you know about Phoenicia, just background-wise?
Big fan of their alphabets. I know that
True.
The Phoenicians were a big seafaring people of the Mediterranean, and like I mentioned, their alphabet pretty A1, I would say, to the point where a modified version of it, I think, is what we use now to this day, Kurt.
That's true. Yeah, I actually was gonna mention that in the background, but the Phoenicians had one of the early versions of a written alphabet that was adopted by the Greeks, and eventually, through several iterations, made its way to become the English alphabet. What is the name for our alphabet?
Latin alphabet.
Latin alphabet. There you go. Smarter people than I.
And most claim this as a bad idea. I don't want to know what I'm saying. I don't want to write things down.
But yeah.
Way to ruin it for all of us, Phoenicia.
Yeah, come on, Phoenicia. What are you trying to do here? But yeah, Phoenicia, it was actually a collection of coastal city-states in modern-day Lebanon, and it lasted from 2500 BC to 60 BC. Traded a lot with the Greeks. One of their main exports was purple dye, so that was something that they were kind of known for. And they also contributed, as we just talked about, the idea of the alphabet. So, like I said, it's a collection of city-states. So much like ancient Greece is, separately Athens and Sparta, Phoenicia was a collection of city-states that had overlapping culture, but they each kind of have their own thing going on. One of these cities, named Arwad, had a king, and the king's name is Paul LaRue.
Hold on.
No, not again. His name is Lol Peru.
I'm ready to jump off my apartment building, Kurt. I don't think you understand.
His name is Lol Peru. He never uses the internet. No crime, and he doesn't even know what North Korean meth is.
And has no idea what cryptocurrency is.
Yeah, never even heard of cryptocurrency. No, the king's name is Hiram II. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So when King Hiram II is around age 30, he starts developing symptoms of this mysterious illness. He has a cough, he has feelings of weakness, loss of appetite, shortness of breath, and intermittent insomnia. The medical treatment of the time, which is him paying offerings to the temple and receiving blessings, isn't really working. After about 2 years of trying it, he is a little bit fed up with not seeing any results. He summons a man named Abdelkart in hopes that he can help him. Abdelkart, the name itself in the Phoenician language, actually has a meaning. The prefix abda, so abd, means servant of, and Elkart is the goddess of the ocean, rain, and the circle of life. So Abdelkart means servant of Elkart.
Nice.
Before Abdelkart had this name, he was a man named Baltazar. And Baltazar was a sailor and trader from the Phoenician city of Sidon. He fell overboard into choppy waters. One account says that he was pulled from the water after only a few seconds. Another says it was several minutes. Baltazar claims that he sank to the bottom and died. He says at the bottom of the ocean, he saw the afterlife and the kingdom of Elkart, and he claims that Elkart gave him the gift of life and sent him back to the surface enlightened. So at that point, he renames himself Abdelkart, and basically he is the prophet of Elkart, is what he's got going on.
Okay.
His beliefs are he wears clothes and will do behaviors that bring him close to the ocean. His clothes are dyed blue and purple. Blue, of course, for the ocean. Purple is kind of oceany too, but also probably because I said before, purple dye is one of the principal exports of Phoenicia.
Yeah, and purple dye is made from mollusks. So
yeah. Very cool. Very oceany.
Yeah. Very, very ocean-like. Seems on brand.
He will sometimes sleep in a boat drifting on the water, and he has this belief that the closer you are to the kingdom of Elkart, aka the bottom of the ocean, the holier you are. So he'll wear jewelry made from starfish and shells. He tries to eat as much seafood as possible, especially seafood that lives on the ocean floor, such as oysters, clams, crabs, and lobsters, because they're literally physically closer to the bottom of the ocean. However, he actually ends up eating a lot of sardines and anchovies because they're the cheapest fish, and he never has a lot of money. Believe it or not, being an ocean prophet, wandering the land and sleeping in a boat does not pay super well.
Believe it or not, as much as you say Elkar, the god of the sea, cares about you, they're never going to pay you a livable wage.
That's true.
They will give you many blessings, that's for sure, but a day's work, an honest day's work, that's not going to happen.
So back to Hiram II. So Hiram has summoned Abdelkart, hoping that he can help him. Hiram is kind of skeptical of Abdelkart. He's a little bit of a weirdo. He's kind of the local guy who's wandering around in purple robes with seashells and starfish in his hair and whatnot.
And just reeks of fish.
He probably did.
Just reeks of a fish market, that man does. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, he sure smells like the ocean.
Fish oil and guts. Oh
yeah.
God.
So, but he's desperate at this point. So he summons Abdelkart, hoping he can help him. Abdelkart tells Hiram that he's lost his connection with the ocean and therefore with life. So to heal, he needs to purify his body. So what can Hiram do? He's not going to sleep in a boat because, he's just not going to do that. Mm-hmm. And he's not going to start wearing ocean-colored robes and seashells because that's a bad look if you're a ruler. What he does do is every morning he goes swimming with Abdelkart in the ocean. And the biggest thing he does is changes his diet to try to eat the holiest foods. So predominantly oysters, lobsters, clams, and cockles, all things that reside on the ocean floor. At first, King Hiram's condition improves. All his symptoms kind of lessen. He's feeling better. But after about a month, his symptoms actually get worse. And he also develops headaches. His hands will shake from time to time. And he'll have these occasional mood swings. In response to things worsening, Hiram starts spending more time swimming in the ocean. He also allows Abdelkart to spread sand from the ocean underneath his throne and bed, and he begins drinking a helix of seawater a day. A helix is a type of ceremonial drinking glass. It's really wide, almost to the point where it looks like a bowl, and then it has handles on either side so you can pick it up and drink it.
Man, this man, I think what this man is experiencing is an overdose of omega-3. Like, really, it's just, this man has never had this much fish at once, you know?
It's true. I want to throw out, I feel like Abdelkart is really making it up as he goes along. When you get to the point of we're putting sand under the throne in bed.
Also, Kurt, have you ever gone to bed after spending a day on the beach and then you get like a bit of sand on your sheets? Oh, that's the worst feeling. Of course Hiram is feeling bad.
Oh, that's true. And this man, he's swimming in the ocean every day, so he's like permanently sandy.
Yeah, permanently sandy and permanently with like a film of sea foam on him.
Oh,
Yikes.
yeah.
Listen, I live on a coastal town, Kurt, so I like relate to this. And this seems like the most just awful.
The cure is worse than the disease.
I go to the beach covered head to toe, Kurt. I get made fun of that I go to the beach with pants on and boots. Why? Because I want as little sand in my house.
You go to the beach in your hazmat suit?
Yeah. I wear a morph suit to go to the beach.
So let me ask you, Luis, would you rather take the cold, weakness, cough, weakness, loss of appetite, and insomnia, or would you rather permanently be a little bit post-beach sandy?
Kurt, the balance, the scale balancing is so even in these, Kurt. I wish I had a good answer for you, but I really don't like post-beach.
That's a tough one, huh?
Yeah. Post-beach symptom, not fun. Anyway, go on.
So they continue all this. After the second month, King Hiram is beginning to lose his hearing and vision, and most days he's too weak to get out of bed. He also constantly struggles to catch his breath. So it's not looking good. About a week later, he dies.
Oh.
So, do you have any guess what he died of, Luis?
A couple. He accidentally tripped and fell, and there was just a conch shell on the ground and just stabbed him. I like that one because this other man is just bringing the beach to the bedroom.
Well, I'm not hiding anything from you about the way he died. That it was some accident. Like he was sick and passed away. Do you have any guess what it was that was making him sick? Why he was getting headaches, losing his hearing and vision?
Gotcha. Shoot, I don't know. Maybe food poisoning?
Okay, you're on the right track. So here's something about clams, oysters, cockles, lobsters, and crabs.
Oh no.
They've got a pretty high mercury content.
Damn it.
The general consensus is that whatever his original condition was, maybe it was just stress-induced symptoms, maybe it was nothing, maybe he had like chronic cough and loss of appetite, but then the insomnia was not really a symptom. But either way, once he started this seafood diet of eating all this food that had mercury in it, he gave himself mercury poisoning.
Typical.
For reference, a lot of people know that if you eat too much tuna, then you may contract mercury poisoning. Tuna has 0.49% mercury content. Oysters and clams have 0.25 to 0.3%. Lobsters have 0.194%, and cockles have 0.113%. So all of them have a pretty good amount of mercury in them. All of this combined actually is a pretty low amount of mercury to cause death. Most fatalities that result from mercury poisoning involve people ingesting elemental mercury because it's highly concentrated. It's pretty hard to kill yourself just from eating seafood that has mercury in it.
Unless you have a magician that's force-feeding you oysters.
Yeah, unless you have
Abdelkart.
Here comes the Phoenician version of the choo-choo train. Your big spoonful of lobster, crab, oysters, and cockles.
Just a spoonful of lobster makes the mercury go down.
So that is the thing, is that if that's all you're eating, it is possible to get mercury poisoning from it. It's also possible that he got non-fatal mercury poisoning and it weakened him to the point where he died from something else. Maybe he had pneumonia or something else that killed him. But either way, he dies. After death, Abdelkart wants to sink King Hiram's body into the ocean.
Naturally.
One of King Hiram's sons, Yarick, never trusted Abdelkart. He was pretty sure that he was a fraud from the beginning, and he has him thrown out of the city, and they bury King Hiram II in a family cemetery. After that, basically life goes on until 1919, when the story is re-examined, and at that point, people have enough medical knowledge to diagnose that it's possible he gave himself mercury poisoning.
Wow. And what happened to Abdelkar?
He just kind of faded into the background, really. I mean, he lost all credibility after this because this was like the biggest stage he ever got, and he killed the guy. And he wasn't really a huge name to begin with. He wasn't known throughout all the land. It was really just in some regions of Phoenicia. People had heard about this guy.
Right.
You know, King Hiram basically did the equivalent of like, you know, out of desperation trying to wear the bracelet that improves your balance or something. You know, he was grasping at straws by the time he got to Abdelkar.
It's like, what do I have to lose? Really?
Yeah.
I die either way.
Yeah. No, I think he was just in a lot of discomfort, and he did think, what do I have to lose? But he never considered death in 2 months to be something that he might lose.
He never considered a lethal dose of mercury.
Yeah.
Really not something to bring up with your dietitian.
And he died how he lived. Very sandy.
I was asking about Abdelkar mostly because what if did the man fulfill his life of being sunk to the bottom of the ocean?
I don't know. Well, he wanted to sink the king to the bottom of the ocean, but I guess he wanted to go there eventually as well. One of the unfortunate things is that there's not a lot of written history retained from the Phoenicians. Even though they had an alphabet, they just didn't do a lot of record keeping. So a lot of their history there's a few things that survived here and there, but a lot of it is secondhand from Greek historians writing down things that they heard from Phoenician city-states. So yeah, I don't have any further information on Abdelkar. I'm gonna guess he probably died in the ocean at some point. I mean, he slept on a boat and he's like swimming the ocean. He just, you know, by like probability, he was by the ocean so much. If he just dropped dead, he probably was in the ocean.
Yeah. If he had a heart attack, most likely he would land in a Coco Cay somewhere.
That man died sandy. That's, you know, King Hiram, he was pretty sandy, but Abdelkar, this man's got
that
sand
man was
sand.
Born from sand, died from sand.
Yeah.
Like an ashes to ashes situation, but it's just very salty.
Sand to sand.
Sand to sand. That's a cute little story, Kurt. I really enjoyed it. Is that the end of it?
That is the end of it, yeah.
I love it. That's really nice.
Yeah, it's a little story about a crazy religious guy and some seafood, some mercury, all the highlights.
It just goes to show that crazy religious men have been around always. I mean, immediately as you started describing Abdelkar, I'm like, that's Rasputin. Like,
That's true. I didn't even think about that, but he kind of is.
Yeah, he's like the Rasputin of the Phoenicians. And what did Rasputin do with this bleeding child of Tsar Nicholas? I don't know, just stopped giving him aspirin and somehow it worked, you know? And
the method had been refined from force-feeding lobster to not giving aspirin.
Exactly. He actually was a heavy scholar of Abdelkar. He said, "Hey, Tsar Nicholas, your son has hemophilia. Have you ever tried mussels?"
Rasputin could have really benefited from some starfish and oysters as some jewelry.
Rasputin could have really benefited from a diet rich in omega-3 in fish.
True. That's, you know.
Rasputin invented fish oil pills. That's my headcanon.
So, time for the second story?
Let's hear it, Kurt. I'm ready.
Okay, this one is a real treat for me, Luis, because you are always getting to tell me all these stories about things that happen in Mexico. It's very nice. It's, you know, geographically it's close to you, and emotionally it's stories that are close to you. It's very nice. Today, I get to tell you a story that is very close to me because it takes place in Marshall, Missouri, which is a town 20 minutes from where I grew up.
The peak of Mexican culture in central Missouri.
That's true. Little known fact.
So whether you like it or not, Kurt, you can't run away from Mexico.
Well, we always come back to Mexico. We're all back to Mexico.
It's here. Yeah, I love Marshall. They have a great restaurant there. I think we went there once too.
We probably did. Local Mexican restaurant, you know. But this is the story about a very, very famous dog named Jim the Wonder Dog. Okay?
Ooh, okay.
So, Jim the Wonder Dog was a Llewellyn setter born in 1925, and he was purchased by a man named Sam Van Arsdale for $10 to be a quail hunting dog. Before long, Jim was an excellent quail hunting dog, and he had this remarkable ability to know what areas had quail, and he would even refuse to hunt in areas where there were no quail. Sam Van Arsdale kept a count of the number of quail that he shot with Jim, but he stopped counting at 5,000. Magazines Missouri Life and Missouri Conservationists named Jim, quote, hunting dog of the century. So high praise for Jim.
High praise for Jim.
By the way, I'm gonna have to be saying like Jim because I'm not gonna say Jim the Wonder Dog every time I refer to the dog, and it's very off-putting.
Yeah, I was about to.
Because
I
it's
was
like a
about to
human
say it.
name.
Yeah, I was about to say when you started saying, "Yeah, Jim was very renowned." I'm like, "Wow, good for Jim."
Yeah, there's a lot of sentences in here that are like, so Sam and Jim did this. Just remember, Jim is a dog. Anyway, one day in 1928, they're hunting. It's a very hot day, and Sam says kind of out loud to himself, "It's pretty hot. We should rest a bit under a hickory tree." To his surprise, Jim walks to a nearby hickory tree and lays down. Sam thinks it's pretty strange, but maybe it's a coincidence. So he tests it again with an oak tree this time, then a cedar tree, then a tree stump. For each one of them, when he says it, Jim walks over to that type of tree. Later that day, when they're back in town, Sam gives Jim commands like, "Show me the red car," or "Show me the woman in the blue dress." And for all of the commands, Jim identifies the thing that he is talking about. Okay?
Whoa.
So this quickly grows to be sort of a town legend. Sam and his wife owned a hotel in Marshall. I have a quote now. "When Sam and Jim were around the hotel, a crowd would gather to see what Jim could do. Sam would generally comply by asking Jim to do certain tasks, find the lady with the baby, or show me a man with a mustache. Over time, Sam began asking more complex questions. If someone here is sick, where should he go? Jim would go over and nudge the leg of the town doctor if he was in the crowd." Or a truly baffling one was when Van Arsdale asked, "What made Henry Ford rich?" Jim would then locate a Ford car. The dog could identify cars with specific license plate numbers, and he could even spell. The Moberly Monitor Index reports that when Jim was told, "Find a man with a C-A-N-E," he did so.
Whoa.
Jim was also reported in a lot of stories to respond to commands given from strangers in the crowd, and some of them even in foreign languages, including Spanish, Italian, German, and Greek. For the record, Sam Van Arsdale always said that he only spoke English and didn't understand any of these other languages.
Wow.
What do you think so far, Luis?
You know, I really like this story so far because it seems like something that only would happen in like central Missouri.
Mm-hmm.
You know. But second, always with these stories of animals that can do great feats of, call it supernatural situations,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like they are really underusing the power of the dog to, you know.
Oh, well, I have good news for you. We're only getting started with what.
Oh
what
my
Jim the
goodness!
Wonder
Then
Dog can do.
please continue, Kurt, because I need someone to ask that dog, "Show me the money," you know, or other similar related commands.
Jim,
Like,
where's the
hey,
treasure? Where's El Dorado, Jim?
Jim, where's the second draft of the Declaration of Independence from Mexico, right? Like, Jim, where's my dad?
Jim, do you know the Muffin Man? Okay, well, I just want to tell you for the record, you know me, and I'm a very skeptical person, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So when I'm telling you this story, I'm just reporting to you the factual things that I can verify, that I've seen reported in multiple places, or stories people have told me, and I leave it up to you to decide whether or not this dog has some strange supernatural powers, okay?
Okay.
Okay, so let me continue. By 1930, the legend of Jim the Wonder Dog had grown. Jim and Sam got invited to towns all over Missouri and surrounding states for people to see Jim perform. A lot of people and journalists would come to see them with skepticism, but no one could identify any trick or way that Sam could be signaling Jim. The most famous performance they gave was at the University of Missouri-Columbia, so Mizzou, yay.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. A.J. Durant tested Jim in front of a crowd of students and professors. Dr. A.J. Durant was professor of veterinarian sciences. He tested Jim along with, like I said, a crowd of students and professors, including psychology professors from Washington University, St. Louis, and a news crew filmed it. All of this took place on the quad at Mizzou, where the famous columns are. First, Dr. Durant gave Jim just a thorough medical examination, just to see if there were any abnormalities. Everything was normal. Then he moved on to testing Jim's abilities. I have a quote here from the University of Missouri of College of Agriculture, Food, and Natural Resources website. Okay. Van Arsdale began, "Jim, there is a professor here named Dickinson. Show him to us." Jim did, proving that Van Arsdale wasn't using actors. A line of a dozen language professors stepped up. Surely a hoaxer couldn't master half a dozen languages. To make sure Van Arsdale wasn't giving secret signals, he was told not to move. not even his eyes. An MU professor asked an Italian to be shown an elm tree. Jim put his paw on the closest one. Another directed Jim in French to point out a certain license plate number. Jim walked directly to the car. The next, speaking in German, asked him to find a girl in a blue dress. He did. Still another in Spanish asked the dog to find a man with a black mustache. Jim responded promptly. I also have a little extra tidbit in this story that at one point a Greek professor wrote in Greek on a piece of paper and showed it to Jim. When Jim did nothing, Sam became embarrassed and apologized, but before he could finish, the professor revealed that he had written Greek letters in alphabetical order with no meaning.
What a twist.
I know, so he tested him to see if maybe the dog was just reacting, but it seems, at least according to that, like he actually understood.
I was about to scream, so Jim was illiterate after all, but then I was caught off.
I have another quote here. Witnesses reported that Jim accepted the proceedings calmly and returned to sit quietly at his master's feet until ordered out again. Durant, who had been very skeptical about the whole thing, was startled. Van Arsdale may have developed some elaborate scam, but not respected MU educators whose reputations were on the line. Finally, after all these tests, the professors agree that they can't find any evidence that Jim the Wonder Dog can't read minds, and Dr. Durant concluded that Jim, quote, possessed an occult power that might never come again to a dog in many generations.
Wow.
I also read that about 10 years later, someone asked him, do you still believe that? Were you serious when you said that? And he said, yeah, wholeheartedly, still stand by it, meant it at the time.
I mean, let's be fair, Kurt. You can't prove I can read minds, right? Like, you can't disprove the fact that I can read your mind from this far away, right?
Well, I think I could. I think I could disprove it.
No, what if my excuse is, I just don't want to tell you?
Okay.
You know?
It's a good point. I don't know if it's exactly the same thing, but that would be pretty cool to bring your dog to Mizzou and be like, he can read minds, he just doesn't feel like listening to you.
Yeah, he just doesn't want to. Whenever he doesn't respond, it's because doesn't like you as a person. You know, maybe I'm just lashing out. I feel inferior to this dog and thinking, what have I achieved?
Mm-hmm. You know, I was discussing with my roommates when talking about the story that it would be really cool to say you can do this, but have your dog on a leash all the time. Like, go find the red car, and then they just sit there like, oh, he's really pulling on the leash. He's trying. If he wasn't on this leash, he'd be going that car, really yanking on me.
Golly. If only he wasn't a deathly animal that if he was released, he would murder.
That's like H.P. Lovecraft. All his descriptions are like, I can't even describe this thing, but ooh, boy,
God,
I
wish I could describe to you, because if I did, you would go mad.
Your brain would just melt,
don't you?
If I wish so dearly,
Yeah.
if I could have one thing in this world, it would be for me to describe this big squid monster to you. But I can't. I can't do it.
But alas, I'm a worse man.
Anyway, without further making fun of H.P. Lovecraft, so after the performance at Mizzou, Jim gets invited to perform for the Missouri State Legislature. He does all the usual abilities, they play all the hits.
Now that's what I call Jim the Wonder Dog's powers. Number 5.
This time, without warning, a congressman comes and taps out a message for Jim in Morse code to identify a specific person. Jim follows the instructions and identifies the person. So, just like all the foreign languages, Sam Van Arsdale also did not know Morse code, but apparently his dog, Jim, did. After this, Sam Van Arsdale was offered $100,000 by Paramount Pictures for Jim to make an appearance in some movies. He declined, saying, quote, Jim's powers are beyond my comprehension. I do not care to commercialize on them in any way. Which is a man who knows what he's about. He's like, do I own this dog or does this dog own me? I'm not going to go trying to be in a management position here, okay? I think I'm comfortable.
I'm not going to get philosophical with you. This is just Jim, okay? He operates as he pleases.
And I can't take the money. He's holding my family hostage. He has powers. Please. But he also was offered some opportunities for Jim to star in dog food commercials, which he declined. Jim was, however, featured in Ripley's Believe It or Not, so he did get some notoriety there.
Celebrity.
One of the most famous powers that Jim had was his ability to predict the future.
Oh.
Now we're getting into the fun stuff.
Oh, man.
Jim was said to be able to predict the gender of a pregnant woman's baby. He successfully predicted the winner of the Kentucky Derby, the horse race, 7 years in a row. The way they would do this is they would put all the names in sealed envelopes. Jim would sniff them and choose one with his paw. The envelope would then be put in a safe, only to be opened and reviewed after the race. In 1936, he predicted both the winner of the World Series and the winner of the presidential election. So double whammy.
Same amount of importance, of historical
Yeah.
importance. It lies at the same level of, oh, you know my dog? Not only did he figure out who the president's going to be, but he knew the Black Sox were going to take it all this year.
In all this time, all of Jim's life, Sam never charged anyone to see Jim. He never showed any interest in profiting off him when they go visit the towns. He didn't charge anyone. It was always for free. Jim the Wonder Dog ultimately died March 18th, 1937 at 12 years old. He was buried in Marshall's Ridge Park Cemetery. Originally, there was a bit of a dispute because a lot of people wanted to bury him in that cemetery, but it was a people's cemetery. And some people said you can't bury a dog in a human cemetery. So he was actually buried just outside of the cemetery. But a little while after, the cemetery had to be expanded. And so they expanded it to include Jim's grave. And it is now the most visited grave in the cemetery.
Whoa. Of course it would be.
People will often leave flowers or coins or dog toys at the grave. Additionally, in 1999, in Marshall, a park was built in Jim's honor. And there's a statue of Jim in the center of it.
No.
Okay. To wrap up here, if it pleases the court, I would like to enter another Jim into this story. We've
don't
joked
tell me
before,
it's your father.
I think maybe on this podcast about how everyone I'm related to is named Jim. Just for anyone listening out there, my father's name is Jim. His father's name is Jim. My great uncle's name is Jim. And my mom's brother's name is Jim. And the famous local dog's name is Jim. And my middle name is James. So we're really just making copies of birth certificates over here. We have no new ideas. But no, so this is, like I said, a story very close to me. His town's only 20 minutes away. So I talked to my father, Jim Danner, and he pointed me to some people I actually personally know who either saw Jim the Wonder Dog themselves or knew someone who saw Jim the Wonder Dog. A few days ago, I spoke to Brad Bellamy, who's from Marshall originally. His dad saw Jim the Wonder Dog and fully believed it to be true. He told me that his father saw Sam instruct Jim to find a car with a specific license plate, and Jim ran out the door of the hotel to find the car a full 2 blocks away. He also told me that there was a story that after the performance at Mizzou, someone tried to dog-nap Jim the Wonder Dog, and people advised Sam that he should get out of town for a while, so he and Jim went to Florida. Another person I know, Mary Burge, she's an older woman around Blackwater and Arrow Rock who I always knew growing up. She saw Jim the Wonder Dog when she was a little girl. She believed in the powers. And additionally, the nephew of Sam Van Arsdale did some bulldozing work with my family on our grandparents' house. And so my father spoke to the nephew when they were doing work and asked him about Jim the Wonder Dog. He said he had seen Jim the Wonder Dog a few times and believed in his powers. And he also said that Sam took remarkably good care of Jim. My dad couldn't remember the specifics, but he said it was something akin to, like, if you cooked a whole meal just for your dog, you would say that's, taking such good care of them, you're almost treating them like a person. That was the kind of care that Sam took of his dog. Since I've profited off my father's work here a little bit, I'm going to end this story with a Mark Twain quote, because I swear every time I call my dad, somehow he tells me a Mark Twain quote. So this one goes out to you, Jimmy. This is Mark Twain. The more I learn about people, the more I like my dog. And
wow,
that's exclamation mark.
God, oh man, Kurt, I hate you so much.
It's brutal, huh?
Because you are so, like, a better man than me would assume that if you're bringing anecdotal information from your family and you've talked to people about this, that of course naturally that's the real one. But you are the type of person that could make up an entire conversation with close members of your family in an effort to fool me, Kurt. So you have put me in a very uncomfortable position where if I say that these stories are wrong, not only am I trying to disprove you, but disprove the word of your father, Kurt. And
the Honorable Jim Danner.
Oh, jeez.
I assume also, because I said before that when you tell me stories about the Mexican Empire, sometimes I can't believe that you wouldn't have told them to me before. And you've been to Marshall. The hotel that they had was in the main town square where we've certainly driven through. We've probably driven past where the park for Jim the Wonder Dog is. So I'm sure you're thinking, how could this have happened that we went to Marshall, we were there,
to me.
and this
Kurt,
never came up?
Stop. No, stop it. You are crossing all my cables right now, Kurt. You are causing a short circuit in my brain. Oh my God, Kurt. That's the thing, Kurt. That's what makes me so angry right now, or not angry, but just frustrated. That I've been there, we've been there. Never has this been brought up.
And you went to high school in St. Louis, and you never heard about this.
Yeah, I did. I did go to high school in St. Louis, and I have never heard. But granted, in my defense, if you're in St. Louis, you rarely hear of anything that's happening outside of St. Louis.
St. Louis is an
or in
island.
the rest of Missouri. St. Louis is an island, and St. Louis is an island that refuses to paddle away.
St. Louis is an island, and rural Missouri's choppy waters, brother.
Oh man, Kurt, you have got me in a tough position here. But I just want to tell you rascal, God, I want to believe you so much.
You seem like you're
I
having
want to
trouble
believe you so much.
processing over there.
I'm having trouble processing just continuing with this podcast right now because I'm feeling personally betrayed.
Don't know how much more of this you can take.
I'm at my limit, Kurt.
Well, as much as I love to see you suffer, let's move on to where you can be done with this and rip the Band-Aid off. A little bit of deliberation.
Yes, this needs to happen. Okay, so the Phoenicia story, I'm going to take a leap of faith and trust you, Kurt, because
I don't even know what you're going to say yet, and it's already a bad idea.
These stories of dogs and doing these things are very, I find them to be very endemic to like folk tales of early America and rural America, how Central Missouri is like. So if you were to tell me something like that, I would immediately believe you and say, of course, right? Like you start saying about this wonder dog in Central Missouri, immediately it made sense to my tiny little pea brain. But so I'm going to take a leap of faith and trust you, Kurt, and trust in your integrity to interview others. And the Phoenicia story, I feel like there is just way too little information about the Phoenicians in general, particularly from anything before the fall of the collapse of the Bronze Age. So I am going to say that the Phoenician Rasputin story is fake. Because it seems like there's no way there would be that much information there. As much as I find it interesting in the whole mercury poisoning, and I'm going to put all my trust in you and your made up family, if it is indeed made up or real. I don't know. I'm going to put my faith in that because I want a little more magic in my life, Kurt. So I'm going with Jim the Wonder Dog.
We're Jim the Wonder Dog believers today?
Yep.
All right. You're correct, Luis. Jim the Wonder Dog is the true story.
Oh my God, you don't have no idea the relief that just went through my body.
I'm watching this visually, guys. Luis just sat back, took his glasses off, and wiped his face. I mean, he was really laboring. I can see him perspiring, I believe.
Oh my God. Oh wow. Thank God. Thank the stars. But so it is real. It is Jim the Wonder Dog does have a park in Marshall, Missouri.
Yeah, everything I told you was factual to the best of my knowledge. Like I said, I'm a very skeptical person, but I couldn't find anyone who had seen the dog who did not believe it, and I also could not find any theory on how this could have been done as a trick or anything. So it's a really interesting story. I knew the name Jim the Wonder Dog and just like some of the more vague details, but once I started looking into it, I realized it was a really, really fantastical story. And shout out to Jim Danner again, who gave me the idea for the story. Told me I should research some hometown legends of Jim the Wonder Dog. Right on.
No, yeah, thank you, Mr. Danner. Thank you for bringing that into this episode. Made me freak out in the best way.
Yeah. So how do you feel now, Luis? Because I got to say, since I've learned this story, I've just kind of been sitting with this knowledge and not sure what to do with it. I can't think of any way that this could have been faked at this point, but I also have trouble believing that a dog had all these supernatural powers.
I think we're due for another Wonder Dog in our lifetimes, Kurt. I mean, I can tell you, and I've talked extensively about my family dog that recently died a couple years back.
Joe.
He was so dumb, so stupid, to the point where he must have mad magic powers. Really, truly, there's no way a dog was as dumb
Lucho
as
the
to.
Bewitched.
Yeah, Lucho the Bewitched, who had eyes
His heart
almost
was the
bulging out
size
of
of a
his,
peppercorn. His brain was filled only with water.
and there was no blood when he died. No, his eyes were bulging out so much out of his head, and both eyes were looking in such different directions that there's no way that wasn't a connection to the paranormal.
That's
right?
true. I like the quote by AJ Durant where he says, "Powers which may not come again in a dog for many generations." Like, okay, but so you're saying 30 years from now we're gonna have another one?
Yeah, I'm
Really
telling
made him
you,
a
I think
believer.
we're due for another dog.
Yeah. We all need a little
That's
wonder
great.
dog in our lives right now.
I think so. And well, Kurt, the Phoenician story, going back to that one,
Mm-hmm.
how much of it did you derive from truth, or did you?
Completely made up. You're right actually that there's almost no knowledge of the history of Phoenicia, except for some of the latter ages. But some of the factual stuff like the mercury content of the seafood and stuff was true. But other than that, no, I just completely made up.
What was the name also made up? The names of these people?
Yeah, the
Hiram
names were
and
made up.
etc.?
I just grabbed some names that were generic Phoenician names. Abdelkart does mean servant of Elkhart, and Elkhart is
Okay.
some sort of mythology or goddess in their religion. But save for a few little details, yeah, all made up.
And see, it's interesting, Kurt, because it seems like you did a great job, because it seems like the type of story that would be in common knowledge, you know, like a mythology of sorts. That's great. I liked it. I really liked it.
I think I've just like mentally yanked you around too much in the past episode with the multiple Paul LaRue's that I don't know how many more mind games I can play. I think it's starting to have diminishing returns.
and here's the thing too, Kurt, because the type of stories that like the Phoenician story is, those are the type of stories that really catch my attention, like these random weird tales from ancient history. So you did a really, really good job choosing this topic, as you knew I would immediately be like, Phoenicia? Oh, hit me up with some of that Lebanese culture, baby.
So that brings our score to 3 for me, 5 for you, correct?
That is correct, Kurt. I am back solidly in the lead. Well, I guess I haven't left the lead in a while, but
That's true. You got a little more breathing room now, though. It was getting kind of scary there for a second.
By God, do I need it?
You sure earned it. I'll tell you that. I think doing this podcast has taken years off your life.
Yeah, if we're lucky, I'll die in 5 years. That's if I'm lucky. Oh man, very good, Kurt. But yeah, 5-3 with me in the lead.
Yeah. Well, as much as you've suffered through these very meta and mind-bending stories, I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope everyone listening has enjoyed it. If you want to check out more of us, you can find our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or Spotify. We are also on Instagram at UnbelievablePod and Twitter at UnbelievablePC. If you enjoy the podcast, please tell other people about it. We just surpassed 200 views, which is not very many, but Luis and I are happy about it because we don't know what we're doing. We're just out here talking about stuff and recording it.
We thought we were gonna have maximum 5,
yeah,
including us.
We would have celebrated for 10 people. But either way, we're very happy. If you enjoy it, please subscribe and leave us a review if you feel compelled to do so. Tell friends and family about it. And as always, see you next time. Bye, everyone.
See ya.